Have you been hearing about this human design thing and wondering what it's all about? Welcome back to the Crack the Code podcast. Today, that's what we're going to be chatting about. So I'm super excited to be introducing you to Kristi Sullivan. Kristi is a human design and self-care expert, speaker, and lead author of the best-selling Amazon book, Stop Overworking and Start Overflowing, 25 Ways to Transform Your Life Using Human Design. She hosts a virtual community for spiritually minded females to create better wellness, improve relationships, shift mindsets, and manifest more success, wealth, and freedom to live their best life by design. So welcome, Kristi.
Thank you so much for having me, Cora.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I know I'm a beginner in all this human design stuff too, and it's weird. Like I never heard of it before. It must be fairly new because it seems like it's sort of coming out of the woodwork all over the place right now.
It's definitely something that's trending more. And what I would say too is that it's been around actually since the 80s. That's when really the information was downloaded by the founder creator. But it's really been, I've seen in just the last few years, last year, it's exploded. I started talking about it a few years ago and more people didn't know about it. And now today, usually less people are new to it and more people do know about it. At least they've heard of it. So yeah, it's trending.
So maybe you can fill us in for the people that haven't heard of it before, a little bit of, what the background is. What is it exactly? Where it came from?
Yeah, so it is a system that blends together astrology, the chakras, Kabbalah, I Ching, and quantum physics. So it's a hybrid of these ancient modalities. And I said it's only really been downloaded as that combination for the last few decades. So what happens is you want to look up your design. You can find it on the internet. It's based on your birth date. And it's a little different than personality assessments, which is something a lot of us are interested in to know more about ourselves, but this is really who you are at your core. So when you pull up, so to speak, your design, it's a visual body graph that has a lot of shapes and numbers and such. And so you can find a lot of information online, but I'm here today to talk with you more to help people understand what it is and what do they do with this? Like, what is this tool? It's a great tool for definitely learning more about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I know the first time I saw the graph, I was like, what is this thing? Because it's intimidating when you first see the graph and find out what it's about. So, and I'm assuming there's different kinds of designs. I know with my own, we can talk about mine as an example. That mine came out, I'm a manifester, and it's 5-1 manifester. So there's the name of the thing and the numbers. Maybe you can give us some background on that.
There's a lot of layers. I call it the rabbit hole, but usually where I start when I help people understand the basic elements, the first place we always start is called the energy type. And it's sort of like looking at your astrology sign. But I want to just mention that human design is really your unique blueprint because there's 3 billion combinations. I've never read 2 charts the same, except for twins who are born just minutes apart. So really, there's a lot of layers. The first, though, place we start is sort of that outer layer called the energy type. And there are 5 types, which I can describe. And then from there, you can go into different layers, like the numbers we call the profiles. There's things called the gates and channels. And there's a lot, but I like to let people know that the basics elements, there are 3 that I focus on, can really help you understand, validate, and honor the core of who you are. And getting into all these other layers are great and informative. But the energy type, for example, is a key place to start because we are not all built the same. We're not all wired the same. It's like comparing cars that are unleaded versus diesel versus like V6s, V4s. So you look under the hood of the car and cars are wired differently and they have different needs. And you need to make sure you're maintaining that car and running it appropriately according to how it's built. So that's what the energy type is for. And there's 5 types, which I can go over if you'd like.
Yeah, sure. Go over that quickly.
Yeah. So 3 of them are what we call the non-sacral types, and 2 are sacral. Sacral means there's a abundant workforce, life force energy. The 2 that have that consistent, abundant energy is called the generator and manifesting generator. They make up together 70% of the population. So there's a lot of them around, and we, as I am a generator, we like to be busy, being productive, building, doing things, getting things done. And the other types have a little bit different role, but most important is that their energy is not as consistent. They don't have this enough of the sacral energy to be busy all day. They will try to be, but eventually may lead to burnout. And you're one of them. It's called the manifestor. Manifestors make up 9% of the population. Then there's projectors, 20%, and then rare reflector, 1% of the population. And these 3 energy types, just to give you a little differentiation to the generator types, the manifestors are here to actually initiate. They're the ones that have maybe that download, and then they'll go out and have the generators create based on this download. The projectors are here to guide and share wisdom and help manage some of that builder energy. And then the reflectors are here to reflect and give sort of this feedback to all of the community. So it's this beautiful symbiotic relationship, but they're very different types. And that's important to note.
Yeah. And it would be helpful, especially in business or any kind of projects, if you knew what your types were so that you can have the right types working together. I think that would be cool.
Yeah. And for them to also honor each other, because if we're all trying to be generators, and actually, let's take the example of you as a manifestor, we're usually all trying to just go out, make things happen and do it. We go and initiate. As business owners, there's formulas for do this and do that if you want to build your business. What we're finding is that doesn't work easily. And that leads even to burnout for generators, because what they're doing is trying to follow somebody else's formula. And there's a lot of intuition, especially in human design, inner guidance, that when you follow your right formula, it leads to more ease and effortlessness in building and creating success. But you as a manifestor who are rare, when you are ready to go out and do something, you will initiate. And the generator is really here to respond. So it's very different energy. And I hope people understand what that is, because it can be kind of complex, and we're conditioned to all try to act like one way or another.
Yeah, for sure. I know when I was reading about mine, a lot of stuff was just like, oh, well, no wonder this, no wonder that, because I definitely know the energy part. And I just sort of wrote a lot of it off as also being an introvert. So it's that plus that need for regenerating and regrouping my energy.
Exactly. And especially for someone like you who has this manifestor energy, or any of the projectors or reflectors, they need downtime. They need to be able to rest. I call them like the Tesla cars, where you need to plug yourself in throughout the day to recharge. You also may need alone time, because rather than feeding off other people's energy, you need the time for your system to rest and restore. And that's how you create more energy, is some of that alone time and a lot of downtime. So take that. And what people usually say is, oh, good, you've given me permission to not have to work so hard.
Yeah. And I do know the downtime thing. I just thought, I didn't really know why, but now I have a reason for it. So that's awesome. That's really cool to have the background. And then what do the numbers mean? Everybody's got these numbers. They're like, a manifestor, generator, something / something.
Yeah. So it sort of becomes like this labeling system of I'm this and you're that. And when you look at the profile numbers, it's just another layer. It is unique again to your design. So you're, for example, what's called a 5-1, and I'm a 4-6. So these are different profile numbers, and there are 6 of them altogether. The combination of them help reveal like more parts of that unique energy that you have. I'll give an example for you as a 5-1. This represents the heretic and investigator type. So in general, I'll just speak to you, are here to help others heal to see, like a mirror for them to see what they need to see. So as perhaps a coach or a guide, you're great with that. And you also like investigating. So you want to be sure it's okay if you're spending time on the internet learning things and researching, and then you share that probably in your work. And so you've got this combination, and it kind of helps, it may help you to guide you in your business. Also, marketing can come from this, because you probably do marketing very differently than me as a 4/6, for example. I'm a connector, opportunist, and role model. I'm much more probably extroverted. I like to show up to networking events, and that's where I do a lot of my marketing. I also have something called the role model. So as also a kind of a guide, but in a different way than your 5 line. So it's unique combinations that really can give you more guidance and insight into how to do things.
Yeah. And I can see how that would be so useful. Wish in some ways I could go back, and know that, because when I was in high school, trying to still find what I wanted to do. And I mean, I'm still sort of working on it, but I'm getting a lot closer. Good thing, because, I just turned 60 this weekend. So, but it's all that stuff is really helpful to know which direction. If you're not sure and you're thinking, well, should I go into this or doing that? If you knew what your human design was, that could really help you make that decision, because then you'd know if it's something that really fits with your design.
Yeah. And if you're new to human design, when you discover your energy type, the next actually 2 places that I suggest you look at is the strategy for that energy type. Because again, some are here to initiate, but they need to be rested. Generators are here to respond. And so that means we actually might need to slow down and not put too much on our plate, so we are aware of opportunities that we can respond to. The projectors need a lot of recognition and invitations for their wisdom and insight. So there's something called the strategy, which is important to understand. And then the third is the authority. And this is your inner guidance to help you with decision making. So whether or not you're a 4/6, 5/1 manifestor or generator, the authority is a unique aspect that when you understand it, it helps you to learn how to trust and this inner guidance. Our heads create resistance and confusion when we're trying to decide things. We know that we're taught to use the head, but it's this inner guidance. So for you, for example, Cora, you're a unique authority. Yours is called the ego manifested, and it really stems from the will center and this rare energy that you actually have. Only 1 out of 8 people in our system have this willpower, but it needs to rest. And then when you receive sort of these body sensations, this ability to know what the right timing is, it comes from within. It's not the head. For me, it's a little different place. It comes from my sacral, because I'm a sacral authority. And that's more of this knowing of how to respond that comes from probably more my gut than the other body sensations that you might be aware of. Does that make sense? Does that resonate?
Yeah, that's so interesting. I know. Yeah, it's so much to it. And then when you look at all the graphs and you see all these little channels that go to the different areas of the body, and then there's all those other little numbers that tell you so many other things, gets mind-boggling, but really interesting.
It definitely can get mind-boggling. And for some people, it's maybe too confusing. So again, for some simple tips, I'll share that. One is we are this unique being at our core, but we have a lot of layers above that are our life experiences, how we've been conditioned and programmed. And so that's really key to start to understand. Know who you are, but also who you're not. Know what beliefs and maybe self-limiting thoughts and ideas are really not in alignment for you and for your design, because that can help us to what we call decondition. So it's important to do some of that work. And the other piece I introduce is self-care, because even if you're not doing human design, the best way to align your energy is doing some of that inner reflection and doing things that help your energy feel optimized. are you taking care of yourself? And not just exercise and eating healthy, but do you have a spiritual practice? Do you connect with nature? What lights you up? And those things, even if you don't know human design, are really important for you, again, to optimize that engine that you are and to run it most effectively.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people are starting to realize that how important the self-care part is, no matter where you are. You're a mom, you're whatever, you got to fill up your own tank before you can help everybody else. And it's so important. If you don't do that part, everything else falls apart.
Yes, it's so important. It's like the oxygen mask. You want to put that on first. And again, if you're trying to learn human design or this doesn't resonate for you, still the self-care piece is like key to understanding who you are, honoring yourself, putting yourself first so that then you can provide for others, give service, or just have a business that's not depleting you, not burning you out.
Yeah. And so when people, like, it's funny you were talking about twins, because I actually have twin boys, identical twin boys. So I plugged theirs in just to see if it was going to be the same, because they're only 8 minutes apart. Right. And I wasn't sure if that mattered or not, but it would be interesting to do that for people with kids, to put their information in, because that might also help to guide them, when they're trying to decide, what do they want to do when they grow up. If you know those little bits and pieces, that would be really handy to know.
Yeah, I hear that a lot from parents, or just generally from people. They want to look up other family members, their partners, but kids definitely, because when you start to honor who they are and help them with their energy from an earlier age, rather than try to conform them to the way that we each think that we need to be parents and how the kids need to act, it can really make a big difference. What's interesting too, just on a side note, is that when you put together two energy blueprints, like if we were to do yours and mine, or you and your twins, you come together so that even as you interact, that relationship between the two energy designs is unique as well. So it's really kind of really interesting when you start to introduce, but I always say start with knowing who you are, understanding who you are, because that really, being more of who you are, helps others also to honor who they are. And that there's not this, you need to be more like me, but rather this honoring of each of us uniquely.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, to do this, you need your name, your birthplace, and your date of birth, or time of birth.
Yeah.
What if you don't know the time?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have gotten that before. So you do need your birth date, time, and location as well. But if you don't know the time, there's a couple of things. First, to sometimes go back to the hospital where you were born. They may have a record of it. It may not be on your birth certificate, but there still might be a record. Sometimes I tell people to ask your family members, as long as you know maybe what time of day, like was it morning versus night? And if you don't know that or don't have access to that, then I know I've used like a pendulum. If you know someone who does astrology, someone in that realm could probably help you to find out sort of a close time, because what's happening is during certain hours of the day and days of the week and months of the year, we've got shifts in our planets. So it does stem back to astrology. And you can really know when certain planets are in alignment, sort of that matches your natural way of doing things.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of figure it out a little bit, but it may not be precise. Having the time is always helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the easiest way. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for sharing all that today, because I know a lot of people have been wondering about this human design. They've been hearing about it. Like you say, it's really come about a lot in the last year or so. What is the best way? Of course, we'll have everything in the show notes for people who are listening, but if someone wants to reach out to you and learn more, maybe have their reading done, the full thing of their human design, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, thank you. So they can check out my website, KristiHSullivan.com. There's contact info there, but I also have a community on Facebook called Kristi's Human Design and Self-Care Community. That's where I post regularly and share opportunities and podcasts and interviews and such. I do love doing one-on-one readings to help people understand their design. I also have a membership community. So if people know their human design, but want that like support of like, what do I do with this? And then I also have some transformational group work where we help really the deconditioning process. So there's different layers. And I always say there's also different practitioners out there. So find one that resonates with you and do have that discussion about your design, because there's so many great ways to look at it and to understand it.
Yeah, there's so much to it. Well, thanks again. Thanks so much for sharing with us today, Kristi. And for those of you listening, if you heard something interesting about this today, you're not sure, go online and look it up or get together with Kristi or somebody else, like she says, that resonates, because this is such interesting information. I know you're going to really love it. So get out there and get it done, because it's never too late.